Now time for the Met Service coastal forecast for all of Aotearoa, New Zealand to midnight tonight. The situation, an active front moves rapidly up the country today, starting over the North Island this afternoon, then clearing the upper North Island on Sunday. Meanwhile, a ridge builds over the South Island. A trough approaches from the west on Monday, reaching the far south at night. A low then approaches from the west on Tuesday. To plenty we go firstly, northwest, 15 knots, rising to 25 knots this afternoon and sea becoming rough. Plenty's outlook, changing early Sunday, easterly 20 knots, easing Monday northeast, 10 knots. Colville, southwest 15 knots, becoming northwest 15 knots this morning and rising to 25 knots for a time this afternoon and evening. Sea becoming rough for a time. The outlook for Colville, westerly 15 knots, turning later Sunday easterly 15 knots, easing Monday variable 10 knots. Brett, variable 10 knots, northwest 20 knots developing this morning and sea becoming moderate. Brett's outlook, becoming Sunday, variable 10 knots, developing Tuesday, northeast 15 knots. Kaipara, variable 10 knots, northwest 15 knots developing this morning, sea slight. Southwest swell 3 metres, easing. Northwest swell 2 metres developing. And the outlook for Kaipara, becoming Sunday, variable 10 knots, developing Tuesday, northeast 15 knots. Moderate southwest swell developing Sunday and easing Tuesday. To Raglan, westerly 15 knots, rising to northwest 25 knots this morning and then changing southwest 20 knots this evening. Sea becoming rough for a time. Southwest swell 2 metres, northwest swell 2 metres developing. Fair visibility in rain from this evening. And the outlook for Raglan, easing early Sunday, variable 10 knots, developing late Sunday, northerly 15 knots, easing Tuesday, variable 10 knots. Moderate southwest swell developing Sunday and easing Tuesday. Now for Stephens, there's a gale warning in force. Northwest 25 knots, rising to 35 knots this morning and becoming southeast 25 knots east of Farewell Spit to Hawera, but southwest 25 knots in the west this afternoon. Then becoming southeast 25 knots everywhere this evening. Sea becoming very rough for a time. Southwest swell in the west 2 metres, northwest swell everywhere rising to 2 metres. Fair visibility in rain this afternoon. And the outlook for Stephens, easing Sunday, easterly 15 knots and turning Monday northwest 20 knots, easing late Tuesday, variable 10 knots. Moderate southwest swell in the west, easing Tuesday. A gale warning in force also for Cook. Northerly 35 knots, rising to 45 knots this morning and then changing southerly 40 knots early this afternoon, easing to southerly 30 knots by evening. Sea becoming high for a time. Southerly swell rising to 2 metres and poor visibility in a period of rain this afternoon. Cook's outlook, easing early Sunday, southerly 15 knots and late Sunday variable 10 knots. Developing early Monday, northerly 20 knots, rising late Monday to 30 knots with rough sea and easing late Tuesday northwest 20 knots. Moderate southerly swell easing Sunday. And we have a gale warning in force for Castle Point. Northwest 45 knots but 35 knots in the north with Cape Palliser. Changing southerly 30 knots everywhere this afternoon and easing to 15 knots this evening. Sea high in the south this morning. Southwest swell rising to 2 metres. Fair visibility in a period of rain this afternoon. And the outlook for Castle Point, becoming early Sunday, variable 10 knots. Developing late Sunday, northeast 15 knots. Rising late Monday, northwest 25 knots with rough sea. Easing late Tuesday, northwest 15 knots. Southwest swell becoming moderate Monday and then easing Tuesday. To Portland. Northerly 20 knots, rising to northwest 30 knots about East Cape this morning and changing southwest 30 knots in the south this evening and then becoming southerly 20 knots everywhere overnight. Sea rough at times. Southwest swell 1 metre and fair visibility in rain this evening. Portland's outlook, becoming everywhere early Sunday, southerly 20 knots, easing late Sunday, variable 10 knots. Developing Monday, northerly 15 knots. Southwest swell becoming moderate Monday, easing Tuesday. Able, a gale warning in force. North of Separation Point, northwest 25 knots, rising to 45 knots this morning and changing southeast 25 knots this afternoon. Elsewhere, northwest 15 knots, rising to 25 knots this morning and changing southeast 15 knots this afternoon. Sea becoming very rough in the north for a time. Fair visibility in rain this afternoon, and Able's outlook easing everywhere Sunday, variable 10 knots. Developing Monday, northwest 20 knots. The gale warning in force for you, Grey, northwest 25 knots, changing southwest 35 knots, but 25 knots north of Abbott Head this morning, easing to southwest 20 knots everywhere this evening, and to variable 10 knots tonight. Sea becoming very rough for a time in the south. Southwest swell rising to 3 metres, northwest swell rising to 2 metres for a time. Poor visibility in rain this morning, and Grey's outlook becoming everywhere early Sunday, variable 10 knots. Developing late Sunday, northerly 15 knots. Moderate southwest swell easing Monday, but returning on Tuesday. And a gale warning in force for Milford. Southwest 35 knots, easing to 25 knots this morning. Very rough sea, easing this morning. Southwest swell rising to 4 metres. Northwest swell rising to 2 metres for a time. Poor visibility in rain, clearing this morning. And the outlook for Milford, easing early Sunday, variable 10 knots. And developing late Sunday, northerly 15 knots. Rising Monday, northeast 35 knots with very rough sea. Easing Tuesday, 25 knots. Heavy southwest swell becoming moderate Sunday, easing Monday. Moderate northwest swell developing on Tuesday. To Pusago, southwest 30 knots, easing to 20 knots early this afternoon. Rough sea, easing. Southwest swell rising to 4 metres. Northwest swell 3 metres, easing. Fair visibility in showers, easing this morning. And the outlook for Pusago, turning early Sunday, northwest 20 knots, rising Monday, northerly 45 knots with cruise sea. Changing early Tuesday, southwest 15 knots. Easing late Tuesday, variable 10 knots. Heavy southwest swell becoming moderate Sunday, and heavy northwest swell developing Monday, easing Tuesday. Fovo, southwest 30 knots, easing to westerly 20 knots this evening. High sea in the south, easing. Southwest swell rising to 4 metres offshore, and fair visibility in showers, easing this morning. The outlook for Fovo, northwest 20 knots, easing Tuesday, variable 10 knots. Heavy southwest swell becoming moderate Sunday. Chalmers, southwest 30 knots, easing to 20 knots this afternoon, and rough sea easing. Southwest swell rising to 3 metres offshore, fair visibility in a few showers. And the outlook for Chalmers, turning Sunday northerly 15 knots, moderate southwest swell easing Tuesday. We have a gale warning in force for Rangitaiki. Northerly 15 knots but 25 knots south of Waitaki River, becoming southwest 35 knots everywhere early this morning and quickly easing to 25 knots by mid-morning and to southwest 15 knots this afternoon. Sea becoming very rough for a time. Southwest swell rising to 3 metres offshore and fair visibility in a period of rain this morning. The outlook for Rangitaiki, easing early Sunday, variable 10 knots. Developing for a time late Sunday, northwest 15 knots. Developing Tuesday, northerly 15 knots. Moderate southwest swell easing Sunday, returning offshore Monday, and then dying out on Tuesday. Conway has a gale warning in force as well. Northerly 25 knots, changing southwest 35 knots mid-morning, and quickly easing to 25 knots by early this afternoon. Easing to southwest 15 knots this evening. Sea becoming very rough for a time. Southwest swell rising to 2 metres offshore. Northerly swell 1 metre developing for a time. Fair visibility in a period of rain late morning and early afternoon. The outlook for Conway, easing early Sunday, variable 10 knots. Developing late Sunday, northerly 15 knots. Moderate southwest swell easing Sunday, returning offshore Monday and then dying out Tuesday. And for the Chatham Islands, northwest 15 knots, rising to 25 knots this morning and changing southwest 25 knots early evening. Sea becoming rough. Southwest swell 3 metres, easing for a time. Northwest swell 2 metres developing, and poor visibility in rain this evening. Rapid for the Chatham Islands, easing Sunday, southwest 15 knots, and easing early Monday, variable 10 knots. Developing late Monday, northerly 20 knots. Moderate southwest swell becoming heavy for a time Monday. Moderate northwest swell easing Sunday. The coastal